Something happened quietly today that placed your name inside a room you have never entered, beside a decision you never knew was being made. A man with more money than most people will ever see sat behind a wide glass desk, opened a dark leather folder, and spoke your name with the calm certainty of someone who had already made up his mind. But here is the part that changes the feeling of this story completely. You were not the first person close to you to find out. The person whose heart has been tied to yours in ways neither of you fully understands learned about it before you did. And when they saw what had been connected to your name, they did not celebrate. They went silent. This is a fictional inspirational story, but listen closely to the emotion beneath it, because the most important part is not the fortune, the signature, or the millionaire. It is what the discovery forced two people to finally face. Your soulmate had not expected to be there that morning. They had only gone into the building because of a favor. The lobby was all polished stone, soft music, and people who seemed to walk as though every minute belonged to someone important. Your soulmate felt out of place immediately. They glanced at their phone twice, almost turned around once, and told themselves they would be gone in 10 minutes. Then a receptionist looked up and said a name your soulmate knew too well. Yours. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just your name, spoken to another employee as if it belonged there. Your soulmate stopped walking. For half a second they wondered if they had imagined it. There are certain names the heart recognizes before the mind catches up. Yours was like that for them. Even after long silences, unanswered questions, and moments when they had tried to convince themselves they were moving on, hearing your name unexpectedly still changed the rhythm of their breathing. They turned. The receptionist was holding a cream-colored envelope. Across the front, printed in black ink, was your full name. Your soulmate stared longer than they should have. The employee noticed. Do you know this person? That simple question opened a door neither of them understood yet. Your soulmate hesitated. There were 100 answers they could have given. Yes. We used to be close. It's complicated. I think about them more than I admit. Instead, they chose the safest answer. I know them. The receptionist nodded casually and placed the envelope beside a stack of documents. That should have been the end of it. But moments later, an older man stepped out of the elevator with two attorneys beside him. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, carried no briefcase, and moved with the relaxed confidence of someone who did not need to impress anyone in the building because half of it belonged to him. Your soulmate recognized him. Almost everyone in that city did. He was the millionaire whose name appeared on towers, charities, development projects, and business headlines. He was known for buying properties people said could never be bought and funding projects others called impossible. He walked toward the desk. Then he saw the envelope. And he asked, "Has the paperwork for them been finalized?" Your soulmate's stomach tightened. For them. The receptionist answered, almost. There's one final document waiting for review. The millionaire looked at the envelope with an expression your soulmate could not understand. Not businesslike. Not cold. Personal. He placed his fingertips lightly against it and said, "Make sure their name is exactly right. I don't want a mistake on this." Your soulmate felt something shift inside them. Why would a man like this care whether your name was written correctly? What could possibly be inside those documents? And why had nobody told you? Your soulmate left the building carrying the unanswered question with them. All afternoon, they tried to ignore it. They went through the usual motions. They answered messages. They drank coffee that went cold. They stood beside a window watching traffic pass far below. But your name kept returning to them, along with the millionaire's words. Make sure their name is exactly right. At first, your soulmate told themselves it was none of their business. Then another thought appeared. What if you were in trouble? That possibility changed everything. Because despite whatever distance existed between you, despite whatever pride had been built like a wall between conversations, your soulmate still carried a quiet instinct to protect you. They hated admitting that. For weeks, they had been trying to become emotionally disciplined around you. They had told themselves not to wonder what you were doing. Not to look for hidden meaning in your silence. Not to imagine future conversations that had not happened. Yet one strange envelope had broken through all of that restraint. That evening, they contacted someone they knew who worked with one of the Millionaire's charitable foundations. They tried to sound casual. Do you know anything about a file connected to someone named? Then they said your name. There was a pause on the other end. Not a normal pause. A careful one. Why are you asking? Your soulmate sat straighter. So there is something. The person on the phone lowered their voice. I shouldn't discuss it. Now curiosity became concern. Is it bad? Another pause. No. That single word should have brought relief. Instead, it created a larger mystery. Your soulmate stood and began pacing. Then what is it? I really can't say. But you know. Yes. Your soulmate stopped beside the window. Outside, the city had turned blue with evening. Office lights glowed in nearby buildings. Somewhere below, a siren moved through traffic and disappeared. Then the person on the phone said something that your soulmate would replay over and over afterward. All I can tell you is this, your friend doesn't understand yet how much their life may be about to change. Your soulmate whispered, what does that mean? But the call ended without an answer. For the first time, excitement entered the fear. Something valuable. Something life-changing. Something connected to your name. And somehow a millionaire was involved. But the mystery was still incomplete, because your soulmate had no idea why you had been chosen. That question became more powerful than the money itself. Why you? The following morning, your soulmate returned to the building. This time, they were not there by accident. They told themselves they only wanted reassurance. One look. One explanation. Something that would stop their imagination from running in circles. The receptionist recognized them. You're back. Your soulmate gave an embarrassed smile. I know this is strange. The receptionist smiled carefully. It is a little strange. I'm worried about the person whose name was on that envelope. That changed the receptionist's expression. They're important to you? Your soulmate looked away. That question was harder than anything else they had been asked. After several seconds, they answered quietly. Yes. The receptionist studied them. Not suspiciously. Almost sympathetically. Then she said, "Wait here." Your soulmate did not know whether they were about to be escorted out or given an explanation. Instead, 10 minutes later, they were invited upstairs. The elevator climbed in complete silence. With every floor, your soulmate's pulse increased. When the doors opened, they entered a private level with dark wood walls, large abstract paintings, and windows stretching from floor to ceiling. At the end of the hallway was the millionaire's office. He was standing near the window when they entered. He turned. "You're the one asking questions about them." Your soulmate swallowed. "Yes." "Why?" Again, that same question. Why did they care? Why did your name still have power over them? Why had they returned? Your soulmate could have lied. They did not. "Because I care about them." The millionaire watched their face. "How much?" Your soulmate almost laughed from discomfort. "That's a very personal question." "It is." There was no cruelty in his voice. Only curiosity. Your soulmate looked down at their hands. Then they said something they had never said aloud before. More than they probably know. The millionaire nodded slowly. As though that answer confirmed something. He walked to the desk and picked up the leather folder your soulmate had seen the day before. Their eyes immediately moved toward it. "Is their name in there?" "Yes." "Are they in trouble?" "No." "Did they do something?" The millionaire gave a faint smile. "Yes." Your soulmate's heart dropped. "What?" The millionaire sat. Something they probably forgot. That answer made no sense. Your soulmate stepped closer. What did they forget? Instead of answering, the millionaire opened the folder. Your soulmate saw legal pages, signatures, photographs, and what looked like a property survey. Property. That word changed the room. Your soulmate stared. "Is that a house?" The millionaire looked down at the documents. "Not exactly." He turned one page. A photograph became visible. It showed a large piece of land outside the city, bordered by trees, with an old stone building near the center and open field stretching toward distant hills. Your soulmate felt their breath catch. They had seen that place before. Not in person. In something you had shown them months ago. A picture. You had once spoken casually about wanting a quiet place away from noise. A place with room to breathe. Maybe somewhere to build something meaningful. You had laughed afterward and said it was probably unrealistic. Your soulmate remembered the exact expression on your face when you said it. Half dream. Half surrender. And now that place or something remarkably close to it was sitting in a millionaire's folder with your name attached. Your soulmate looked at him. "What is this?" The millionaire closed the folder. "That is not the question you should be asking." "Then what should I ask?" He leaned back. "You should ask why I know them." Your soulmate went still. Until that moment, they had assumed this was business, charity, luck, inheritance, maybe some strange contest. But the millionaire knew you. Somehow. Personally enough to remember something you had done. Your soulmate lowered their voice. How do you know them? The millionaire looked toward the window as though choosing how far back to begin. 3 years ago, I went through one of the worst periods of my life. Your soulmate said nothing. My wife had passed away. My relationship with my son was nearly gone. I had money, companies, properties, employees, advisors, and absolutely no desire to wake up in the morning and continue any of it. His words were calm, but something heavy moved underneath them. One afternoon, I left a meeting early. No driver. No assistant. I walked into a small cafe across town because I didn't want anyone to recognize me. Your soulmate listened more closely. There was someone working there that day. A strange certainty entered the room. Your soulmate whispered your name. The millionaire nodded. They had no idea who I was. He looked down at his hands. I was rude to them. Your soulmate blinked. What? I was having a terrible day and behaving like the world owed me patience. Your friend brought me the wrong order. I snapped at them. Your soulmate could almost picture it. You standing there. Tired perhaps. Maybe embarrassed. Maybe irritated. What did they do? The millionaire smiled. They apologized. Your soulmate waited. That's it? No. His smile disappeared, replaced by something warmer. They brought the correct order, then sat across from me for 30 seconds. Your soulmate frowned. Why? Because they said I looked like someone who needed another human being to talk to. The room became very quiet. Your soulmate could imagine you saying something like that. Not dramatically. Maybe awkwardly. Maybe with a small smile. The millionaire continued. I told them to mind their own business. Your soulmate almost smiled. And did they? No. Now he laughed softly. They said, you seem angry, but I don't think anger is the real thing hurting you. Your soulmate felt their throat tighten. The millionaire looked toward the window again. That stranger saw through me faster than people I had paid thousands of dollars to advise me. What happened? I told them a little about my son. Your soulmate listened. They said something simple. They said, if you still love someone, don't let pride become the last conversation you ever have with them. The sentence seemed to remain suspended in the office. The millionaire took a slow breath. That night, I called my son. Your soulmate finally understood that this story was much deeper than a financial gesture. We spoke for 6 hours. His eyes became distant. We rebuilt something that I thought was gone. Your soulmate whispered, and you remembered? I never forgot. But did they know? No. That was when another emotional twist entered the story. Because the millionaire had spent years looking for you. Not obsessively. Not through dramatic investigators. Simply through quiet inquiries. The cafe had closed. Employees had moved. Records were incomplete. You had vanished into the ordinary movement of life. Until several months ago. One of the Millionaire's Foundation employees had attended a local community project. Your name appeared on a volunteer list. The Millionaire recognized it immediately. He asked for a photograph. And there you were. Older. Changed. But unmistakably the person who had sat across from him for 30 seconds when he felt most alone. Your soulmate stood completely still. So this property. The Millionaire looked at the leather folder. Is part of something I decided long ago. Part? That word mattered. The Millionaire nodded. There is more. Your soulmate's heartbeat quickened. What more? But before he could answer, an assistant entered carrying another folder. She paused when she saw your soulmate. Sorry. I didn't realize you had company. The Millionaire gestured. It's fine. She placed the second folder on the desk. Your soulmate looked down accidentally. At the top of the document was your name. Below it was another name. Their own. Your soulmate stopped breathing. The Millionaire noticed. So did the assistant. Your soulmate looked up slowly. Why is my name on that? No one answered immediately. That silence was different from all the others. It carried weight. Possibility. And something almost frightening in its tenderness. Your soulmate stepped closer to the desk. What does this have to do with me? The Millionaire looked at them for several seconds. Then he said, that is the part one was hoping your friend would explain. My friend doesn't even know this exists. I know. Then how could they explain it? The Millionaire opened the second folder. Inside was a handwritten letter. Not from him. Your soulmate recognized the handwriting before they saw the signature. It was yours. Their face changed instantly. When did they write that? The Millionaire did not answer the question directly. Instead, he slid the letter across the desk. Your soulmate reached for it. Their fingers trembled. The paper looked worn, as though it had been folded and unfolded many times. The first sentence made their eyes widen. They read it again. Then a third time. The Millionaire watched silently. Your soulmate's lips parted, but no words came. Because whatever you had written in that letter had not been written recently. It had been written long before this Millionaire found you. Long before your soulmate ever entered this office. And somehow, inside those pages, you had mentioned them. Not casually. Not as a passing thought. You had written about the future. About what you hoped to build. About what kind of life you wanted if life ever gave you another chance. And near the end, you had written one sentence that made your soulmate sit down because their knees suddenly felt weak. The Millionaire quietly closed the office door. Your soulmate looked up with tears beginning to gather. How did you get this? That, he said, is where the real story begins. Your soulmate looked again at the document beneath the letter. Your name. Their name. A property. A legal agreement. and one section covered by another page that they had not yet read. They moved the paper aside. The millionaire did not stop them. Your soulmate saw the heading. Their entire expression changed. Because this was no longer simply something valuable placed in your name. It was something that could only become yours if one deeply personal condition was answered first. And beneath that condition was a blank line. A line waiting for two signatures. Yours. And your soulmate's. They looked up at the millionaire, stunned. What exactly did they ask for all those years ago? The millionaire leaned forward. And the answer he gave was the one thing your soulmate had never imagined hearing. But before the full truth could be spoken, the office phone rang. The assistant answered. Her face immediately changed. She looked toward the millionaire. Then toward your soulmate. They're downstairs. Your soulmate froze. Who? The assistant swallowed. Then she said your name. And suddenly every secret in that room was seconds away from colliding with the one person who knew none of it yet. The elevator doors opened before anyone in the office had time to decide what should happen next. Your soulmate remained seated for one suspended second, staring at the letter in their hands. Your handwriting was unmistakable. Their name appeared inside words you had written long before you could possibly have known that this morning would exist. Across the desk, the millionaire rose slowly, while his assistant gathered the loose documents without covering the one page that mattered most. Two names. Two signature lines. And a condition no one had fully explained. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Your soulmate stood. Every question they had carried for months suddenly seemed to gather inside that single approaching sound. They had imagined seeing you again in countless ways. Maybe across a crowded room. Maybe after an accidental message. Maybe in some ordinary place where both of you would pretend not to be nervous. Never like this. Never with a millionaire standing nearby, a valuable property connected to your name, and an old letter revealing feelings you had apparently carried in silence. Then you appeared in the doorway. You stopped. The first person you saw was not the millionaire. It was your soulmate. For a moment, neither of you moved. Your face held pure confusion. Theirs held something much harder to hide. You looked from them to the millionaire, then toward the papers spread across the desk. What is happening? The millionaire gestured toward an empty chair. I think you should sit down. You did not. Your eyes returned to your soulmate. What are you doing here? They opened their mouth, but the answer seemed impossible to summarize. I heard your name yesterday. That explains nothing. I know. They glanced at the letter. Your attention followed. And then you recognized it. Your entire expression changed. You crossed the room quickly. Where did you get that? Your soulmate held the paper carefully, almost apologetically. It was here. You looked at the millionaire. How? He walked around the desk. That is what I asked you here to explain. You stared at him. I don't understand. You will. He picked up the letter and placed it between you and your soulmate. Do you remember a community time capsule project from several years ago? Your eyes narrowed as you searched your memory. Then recognition arrived. It had been a small local project organized by the same cafe where you once worked. Employees and volunteers were invited to write anonymous letters about the life they hoped to build someday. Most wrote about careers, travel, houses, or accomplishments. The letters were supposed to be sealed and reopened years later during a community redevelopment event. You had almost forgotten yours existed. But when the cafe closed unexpectedly, boxes containing those letters were transferred to a non-profit organization. Years passed. That non-profit eventually became part of a redevelopment partnership funded by the Millionaire's Foundation. And months ago, while archived materials were being sorted, your letter was found. Your name was written inside. So was another name. Your soulmates. You looked at them immediately. They were already watching you. I wrote that before. Your voice faded. Before what? They asked. You looked away. Before the distance. Before disappointment complicated everything. Before both of you learned how easy it was to care deeply and communicate poorly. Before silence became safer than honesty. The millionaire spoke gently. When my staff found the letter, they brought it to me because they knew I had been searching for you. You shook your head. This is unbelievable. I imagine it is. But the property? Now the room reached the question that had been waiting since the beginning. The millionaire opened the first folder. The property originally belonged to my wife's family. He turned the photograph toward you. You stared at the old stone building surrounded by open land. It has been unused for years. We intended to sell it. He paused. Until I read your letter. You frowned. What could I possibly have written that would change a decision like that? He slid the letter toward you. Read the last page. You hesitated. Then you picked it up. Your soulmate watched your eyes move across words written by a younger version of yourself. You remembered that version gradually. Someone with fewer defenses. Someone willing to dream without immediately calculating all the reasons a dream might fail. You reached the final paragraphs. Your breathing changed. Years ago, you had written that if you ever had enough resources, you wanted to create a place where people who felt overlooked could begin again. Not a mansion. Not some monument to success. A living place. Gardens. Rooms for workshops. A kitchen where people could sit together. Space for creativity, mentorship, community, and quiet. Then came the sentence your soulmate had already read. You had written, "If I ever build something that truly matters, I hope the person I love is standing beside me not because I need someone to complete me, but because the right person makes me want to share what I build." And beneath that sentence, almost as an afterthought, you had written your soulmate's name. You lowered the page. Neither of you spoke. The millionaire broke the silence. When I read that, I remembered what you did for me. You looked confused. What did I do? His expression softened. You really don't remember me. You studied his face. Then something shifted. A cafe. A rainy afternoon. An angry stranger sitting alone. A conversation that lasted less than 15 minutes. Your eyes widened. You were. Yes. You sat down at last. I had no idea. That was the point. He smiled faintly. You treated me like a hurting person because you believed I was a hurting person. Not because you knew what I owned. You shook your head, overwhelmed. I barely did anything. That is where you are wrong. He told you what happened afterward. The phone call to his son. The 6-hour conversation. The gradual rebuilding of a relationship. The reconciliation that allowed a father and son to recover years they might otherwise have lost. Then he said something that finally explained why this entire chain of events had begun. People assume wealth makes every meaningful thing purchasable. It does not. That afternoon, I would have traded a great deal of what I owned for someone to remind me that I still had time to repair what mattered. He touched the folder. You gave me that reminder without asking for anything. Your eyes dropped toward the property photograph. So you're giving me land because I spoke to you once? No. His answer came immediately. I am giving you an opportunity because years later, when nobody was watching and you thought your letter would disappear into a box, you described wanting to give other people the same thing you accidentally gave me, somewhere to feel seen and somewhere to begin again. That distinction mattered. This was not payment. It was not a magical reward for one good deed. It was one person choosing to invest in another person's capacity to create something meaningful. But one mystery remained. Your soulmate touched the document. Then why is my name here? The millionaire looked between you. Because I made an assumption. Your soulmate frowned. What assumption? That you were still together. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, you almost laughed. Your soulmate did too. Not because anything was funny, exactly, but because after all the mystery, legal documents, private offices, and emotional suspense, one part of the situation had been created by something painfully human. A misunderstanding. The millionaire raised one hand. My staff researched the letter, found references connecting the two of you, and believed the project had originally been imagined together. Your soulmate looked down. It wasn't. No, you said softly. But they were part of why I imagined it. That changed the atmosphere again. Your soulmate looked at you. What does that mean? Now there was nowhere left to hide. No convenient interruption. No unanswered phone call. No hallway to escape into. You looked at the person whose name you had written years ago. When I knew you, you made me think differently about the future. Their eyes became glossy. You never told me that. I know. Why? You breathed out slowly. Because wanting something that much scared me. Your soulmate stared at you. You thought silence was better? No. You shook your head. I thought silence was safer. For who? That question landed harder. You considered it. Then answered truthfully. For me. Your soulmate nodded, and a tear escaped before they could stop it. That's what hurt. You moved closer. They did not retreat. You disappearing into yourself made me believe I had imagined everything. You didn't. How was I supposed to know? You weren't. There was no defense in your voice now. Only responsibility. I should have told you. Your soulmate wiped their cheek. I should have asked instead of pretending I didn't care. The millionaire glanced toward his assistant. Without saying anything, both quietly left the office. The door closed. And for the first time, the mystery of the property became secondary. Because two people who had spent so long wondering what the other felt were finally standing close enough to ask. Your soulmate placed your old letter on the desk. Did you mean it? You knew exactly which sentence they meant. Yes. Then? Yes. And now? That was the dangerous question. Years could change people. Memories could become prettier than reality. A name written in an old letter was not a promise that two people belonged together forever. So you did not give the easy answer. You gave the true one. I don't know exactly what our future looks like. Your soulmate's face fell slightly. You continued. But I know I don't want fear deciding it for us anymore. Their eyes lifted. I don't want an old letter to pressure you. I don't want this property to become some strange reason we force ourselves into something. And I don't want money deciding what love means. You stepped closer. But if you are willing, I want to know you again. Not the version I remember. You. Who you are now. Your soulmate swallowed. And if we're different? Then we discover that honestly. And if it doesn't work? Then at least silence doesn't get to write the ending. Something softened in their expression. That was what they had needed. Not a grand declaration. Not destiny used as pressure. Choice. Real choice. They reached for your hand. Then start with coffee. You smiled. Coffee? Coffee. After all this? Especially after all this. You laughed, and for the first time that morning, the room felt ordinary. Human. Possible. Several minutes later, the millionaire returned. He looked at your joined hands but made no comment. Instead, he placed the final documents before you. There is something we need to correct. Your soulmate immediately understood. The condition. Yes. He took the document with both signature lines and tore it cleanly in half. You stared. What are you doing? Fixing my assumption. He replaced it with another page. The property would be placed into a charitable development trust, with you offered leadership of the project and significant funding to explore whether the vision was viable. It would not become your private fortune overnight. There would be responsibilities, planning, oversight, and work. And your soulmate did not have to sign anything. Their relationship with you would remain exactly what it should be. A choice. The millionaire looked at both of you. I nearly made the mistake of attaching a relationship to a gift. Love should never be a contractual condition. Your soulmate smiled. Thank you. But then he revealed one final detail. The stone building on the property had once been a retreat center established by his late wife. She had dreamed of restoring it. She never had the chance. He wanted the project to honor her memory without becoming trapped inside it. Suddenly, everyone in that room was connected by the same quiet theme. Second chances. A millionaire and his son. A husband carrying the unfinished dream of his wife. A forgotten letter. A person who had once imagined building somewhere people could begin again. And two hearts discovering that beginning again did not require pretending the past never happened. Weeks later, you visited the property for the first time. Your soulmate came with you. There were no lawyers that afternoon. No polished office. No dramatic envelopes. Only a gravel road winding between trees. The old building needed work. Several windows were cracked. Weeds had overtaken the garden. Paint peeled from the wooden doors. It was imperfect. You loved it immediately. Your soulmate walked through the empty rooms, footsteps echoing against stone. In what had once been a dining hall, sunlight poured through tall windows and stretched across the dusty floor. They turned toward you. You really wrote about something like this? You smiled. Apparently younger me was ambitious. They laughed. Maybe younger you knew something. You walked outside together. Behind the building was a wide field. The wind moved through the grass in long waves. Your soulmate stood beside you without speaking. Then they reached for your hand. Not because a document required it. Not because an old letter predicted it. Because they wanted to. Months passed. The project slowly came alive. Architects arrived. Local organizations joined. Plans changed repeatedly. Some ideas failed. Others became better. The millionaire visited occasionally, usually without an entourage. One afternoon, his son came with him. You watched them arguing playfully over where a row of trees should be planted. Then the millionaire caught your eye. He did not say thank you. He did not need to. You understood. Your relationship with your soulmate grew more slowly. And that was perhaps the most beautiful part. There was no sudden fairy tale perfection. You had difficult conversations. You learned what the years apart had changed. You apologized without demanding immediate forgiveness. They admitted where fear had shaped their choices too. Sometimes you disagreed. Sometimes one of you needed space. But neither disappeared. That became your new promise. Not that you would never struggle. That you would speak before silence hardened into distance. Nearly a year after that strange morning in the millionaire's office, the restored building opened its doors. People gathered beneath strings of warm lights. Music drifted through the courtyard. Children ran through the garden. Inside, rooms once abandoned were filled with conversation, art, mentoring, food, and laughter. You stood near the entrance watching strangers walk into a dream you had almost forgotten writing down. Your soulmate came beside you. Thinking about the letter? You nodded. I thought the valuable thing was the property. They smiled. So did I. You looked around. It wasn't. No. The valuable thing was not the land. It was what the land made possible. It was a conversation offered to a grieving stranger. A father calling his son. A forgotten dream surviving inside a cardboard box. A man deciding that gratitude could become generosity. Two people choosing honesty over assumptions. And the realization that sometimes the richest inheritance is not what someone places in your name. It is what awakens inside you when somebody reminds you that what you carry can matter. So, my beloved child, let this fictional story leave something gentle with you tonight. Do not measure your worth by whether a millionaire ever discovers your name. Do not wait for extraordinary wealth, dramatic signs, or impossible coincidences before believing your ordinary kindness has meaning. Some of the most important moments of your life may happen when nobody applauds, when you have no idea who is watching, and when you never expect anything in return. And when love enters your story, remember this too: genuine love does not need manipulation, fear, money, or destiny to imprison someone beside you. The strongest love leaves room for truth. It allows two people to choose each other with open eyes, again and again, while still remaining whole within themselves. May your next chapter bring you courage where you have been hesitant, clarity where you have carried unanswered questions, and people who recognize the goodness in you without asking you to become someone else first. May the doors meant for your growth open at the right time, and may you have the wisdom to recognize that sometimes the greatest treasure waiting behind them is not something you can own, but something meaningful you can build. And may you never underestimate the quiet good you leave behind in another person's life. If this story touched your heart, share in the comments what you would build if you were suddenly given the resources to help others. Like this video if you want more cinematic inspirational stories like this one, subscribe to stay with this journey, and share this message with someone who may need to remember that even one small act of kindness can travel farther than we ever get to see. Until the next story, carry hope gently, choose love freely, and never stop believing that a meaningful life can begin with one sincere human moment.